serve people, to serve community, to use resources, to come together in a spirit of generosity and to serve people who need it. God, I pray for the world right now. I pray for everything that's happening. And I pray that all of the areas that we see, that we say that's not quite the way things are supposed to be, I pray that you speak your life into that you show up and you have something to say about that, you have something to do about that, and you move in those spaces. God, I pray for this community. I pray for the ministries that are going to open this week. I pray for the students. I pray for the student leaders. I pray for all of the kids that are going to come next Sunday and for all of the kids' leaders and the discussions that they get to have and the way that they get to be introduced into your love and into who you are. And I just pray that big things happen in this community. And while this year hasn't looked the way that we thought, that as we move forward, you're still here, you're still moving, you're still up to something. And that we're going to look back at 2020 in a few years and be like, man, I can't believe the way that God moved in the midst of those circumstances. God, thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for who you are. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, John. Wow, that's really fantastic to be able to contribute to the needs of people that way. One of the most challenging things that we face as a church is trying to connect our people and the resources we have combined with the needs of the community. And so that fulfilling that need is just one of many things that we can do. It's great that there's such an opportunity for us to serve and to really make an impact in people's lives. For the past couple of weeks, I've been challenging our church to give online. Thank you for your giving. I want everyone in our church who calls this place home to actually go online, go on our app, and set up their giving through reoccurring giving. Now, even if you give a different way, we want you to do that. And since I've talked about that, we've had some people do it. And I could stand up here and be real general and say that we've had some progress and we need a little bit more. And that's kind of a pastor's trick to kind of like work the numbers for messaging. But the truth is that it's been three people have done it. Thank you, you three. That is amazing that all three of you did it. That's not 100%. So it's a little bit like a father you're just going to keep hearing it until we get to a number that I'm satisfied with. And I'm sure it will never get to 100%. But this church exists and is thriving because of a generous God. And you guys have been generous in his wake. And that's why we're all in this space today. So I want to continue to challenge you. If you're new and you're visiting, jump on the app and give and set up reoccurring giving. It is the easiest thing to do. You open up the app, it says give at the bottom, and then you can set it up. If you already give and you write checks, make the change, baby. Make the change. Go on and set it up through your bank account. It is going to be so much easier as we go through the next 6 months and the church feels the hit of the financial tail whipping and the challenges of people's job loss and different things happening with businesses and stuff. The church is going to take a hit financially. And so that doesn't mean that we're not going to be all right. It means we want to know, we want to be able to, you can't manage what you don't measure. So we want to be able to measure the giving, and that helps us. So really, you got to understand. Now, this isn't a talk that really makes people who are new to church feel comfortable because we're talking about money. But this is an insider conversation to our church. This is how we do church better. This is how we do it together. We communicate with one another. Hey, you tell us what's coming in. We can manage the money. We can make sure that we have our expenses set up. We can make sure that we have a good long-term plan. That's how it works, man. That's how relationships work. So that's what we're asking. We're asking for everyone to communicate well with one another so that we don't live in the kind of, what's next month going to be? What's next month going to be? For the life of the church, most of the time, every month is just continue to get better or stay the same or even out after 2, and it hasn't been an issue. The next 6 to 12 months are going to be a challenge financially, and we need to work together. We need to work together. So this is my plan. Vote for it by going on and giving online, reoccurring on your phone. Please do that. You guys heard Matthew. He led that song, and he did write that song. He wrote that song. He told the story at our worship night in the middle of the night as God was moving, and he was struggling. God moving, him struggling, and he had this idea for a song. And it's a beautiful song. I mean, it's powerful. What a powerful song. I want to make sure that as you listen to that song, that if you're struggling with anxiety, maybe you're on medication, maybe you're going through bouts of panic attacks, maybe you're struggling with a level of anxiety that's all new, maybe you're going through depression, I don't want you to hear, and I would never want anyone at the church to ever hear that we believe if you just follow Jesus, your anxiety will go away. We don't believe that. Okay, we actually, and we don't believe that if you have anxiety, you're a lesser Christian. No, we don't believe that. We don't believe that if you struggle with anxiety that you're like lesser faithful than other people. And anxiety is continued to be studied in terms of nature, nurture, what the kind of the onset is, what the disposition is, predispositions, and what context does to play a role in your anxiety. And the reality is that the more information comes out, context plays such a huge role in anxiety. What you're going through, how you were raised, what experience you're having. And so the reality is anxiety is on the rise across the board. Everybody's struggling with anxiety. And I would love to be able to tell you, if you profess the name of Jesus today and you just give your heart to Jesus, your anxiety will wash away. It's just not true. Anxiety is kind of just an experience that you have in your body. It actually is something just telling you something's going wrong. Something's weird. Something's not right. Something's scary. And I will tell you this, that in the pursuit of Jesus, you can learn to manage and you can overcome moments of anxiety and you can have victory and you can have that triumph in your life of feeling a sense of peace that transcends what you think and what you experience. You can actually feel it in your body. And I believe that type of healing does come from Jesus, but I believe it's not a switch. I don't believe it's you sing a song. I believe it's a pursuit of Jesus as you and him waltz through life together. And that's one of the things I want to talk about today, is that if you're going through anxiety, and again, all the statistics say that we all are. We're all struggling with an anxiousness, with an uncertainty, with a feeling in our body of a lack of control, with a feeling in our mind and an experience in our communities of kind of chaos and instability and nerves and erratic decision-making, erratic thinking, lots of fear, lots of pain that's happening. And there's an article that just came out from John Gottman, who's one of the leading researchers. I talk about him all the time. I follow him. I get all of his books. I read all of his blogs. And he just put out a couple of steps to overcome anxiety, because right now everyone is struggling with anxiety. And the first thing that he says is that you need to have self-compassion. So the first step to overcoming anxiety is to say it's okay that you have anxiety. And what that means is it's okay to say you're not okay. It's really actually therapeutic for you to say you're not okay. You need to first kind of look at yourself, and the beginning of any growth process is the recognition of the issue, the situation, and you're not going to experience any settling anxiety if anxiety is this elephant in the room that you never talk about. And the first person you got to talk to about it is yourself. And you got to look and you got to pray and you got to look in the mirror and go, I am wigging out. I heard somewhere that people that talk to themselves are more intelligent than other people. So I just started to talk to myself just to trick myself into thinking that I'm more intelligent. But one of the things that I do when I'm talking to myself is I actually, tell myself what my problem is. You are freaking out. You're overwhelmed. You're anxious. You're scared. I'm scared. I say, I am freaking out. It's one of the steps to just overcome it. And I'm telling you, I'm getting ready to do a new series. I'm going to talk about at the end of one of the keys to overcoming anxiety is the process that you go through physically to help your body experience it. You know, it's okay to not be okay. I am a parent of 3. Katie and I, we have 3 little kids. And in no fashion are we the best parents ever. No way. I mean, there's no way we would ever. We struggle all the time. We're constantly figuring it out, constantly stumbling, constantly making course corrections and everything all the time. Seriously, it's a constant dialogue. It's a constant challenge. There's a constant level of anxiety and prayer and mystery and dependence upon God as your kids extend beyond your ability to control and they go into the world and anything can happen and you pray that certain things, I mean, you know it as a parent. We are beyond imperfect, very challenged all the time. But one thing that we talk about and we agree upon, and that I want to give as a tip, not just as in parenting, but whenever anybody is struggling, but it plays out in parenting all the time. You see the scenario where a kid hurts himself. The other day I saw a kid, he's getting out of a car and he smacked his head on the side of the car. And of course, you know that, right? The little kid's literally hits the side of his head where his ear and his head meet, and and there's like a bruise. And I mean, this hurts, right? That metal up against the side of your head, really hard, really fast. And the kid just started crying. And the dad walks up to the kid and says, "Are you bleeding? You're not bleeding, are you? You're not bleeding, right? So you're okay." I got to tell you, that type of thing, that's like one of those things, like I'm not like a parenting genius by any stretch, but when someone is hurting and you walk up to them and say, "It's not that bad, you didn't die," my heart breaks. That is the exact wrong thing to say to someone who is hurting. That is the exact wrong thing. It is the perfectly wrong thing. Last week at Kellen's football game, I don't care if the coach hears this, not our coach, but the other coach. And they won, so whatever. But this kid got nailed. He plays tackle football. He got hit on the sideline, and he got his neck hit. And he started to choke a little bit, and he fell down, and he got the wind knocked out of him, and he was on the ground, and he was bawling. He was crying. He was screaming out. There was like a little bit of, it was a little panic set into the crowd as this kid's reaction was so loud. And the coach walks over. The kid is tears streaming down his face, crying. And the coach walks over, and he's like, "Well, you're not dead, are you?" I mean, you're not dead. I'm sitting there. I'm like, is he going to say he's not dead? He gets down and he goes, "Now you can breathe, right? You're still breathing." I kid you not. I kid you not. He said, "No, I don't need to, you can still breathe, right? I don't need to, cut a tracheotomy out, do you? He said that. I sat there and I'm like, are you, I almost did the thing that, I do, but I shouldn't do, but I don't do because I know I shouldn't do it. Where, I wanted to step in and be like, "Hey, man, hey, you got hit hard. That hurt. I saw, you could tell that hurts. I've been hit like that before. It hurts. You're going to lose your breath for a little bit. This is a painful thing, and you're in it. I get it. I'm sorry." Listen, when someone is hurting, it's not an opportunity to tell them that they're not hurting. It's an opportunity for you to connect with them because they're hurting. And it actually is the way to help them heal. That's the part that's like the Chinese finger trap, the Jedi mind trick about it. Is you think by telling them you're not hurting, they're just going to grow up. Another happened, I saw this the other day. A kid got hurt in the neighborhood, and one of the parents just said, "You're tougher than this, you're tougher than this, you're tougher than this." This is not the way we help each other with anxiety or struggles or problems or when a kid is hurting. I'm telling you, what you have to say is the opposite of that. You have to say to them, I know this hurts. I know you're hurting. Ooh, it hurts. Ooh, when you smack your head, oh my gosh, that hurts. When my daughter gets hurt, I bring her in, I say, "Oh gosh, yes, when you get hit like that, that hurts." And I go, "How bad does it hurt?" "So bad." I said, "Yes, that does hurt." You see, if you don't let them know that you hear their pain, you're actually teaching them that them being in pain is not okay. And how do we function in a world where we learn that being in pain is not okay? We disconnect from people. We lose the healing that we need. We lose the connection that we need. When you say you're okay, when you say you're not bleeding, when you say you're stronger than this, that leads to disconnection. And actually, vulnerability, weakness, challenges, hurt, pain is the prime opportunity for human connection. It's the opportunity for human connection. It's the space where they and you can get closer. Instead of telling them what, they need to feel better or they're not bleeding, tell them, I know that hurts. That's scary, that's sad, but I'll go through it with you. We'll figure it out together. What if weakness is that place in your life that God made a void so you could fill it with connection to others? What if the reason for weakness is so that you can't depend on yourself? What if weakness is just objectively just a part of the human experience? We view weakness as having less equity. It's less important. It means you're not valuable. It means you're missing out. What if God, even before the fall, just conjecture, was going to have weakness in there so that the two could be better together? I mean, why did Adam need Eve? Why did they need connection? Just because? Or because two are better than one? What if that's a commentary on the power of weakness? What if weakness is the opportunity that we're all missing for connectivity? God made a void. What if, in a meaningful, healthy, safe way, we could communicate vulnerability? What if life isn't full without weakness and the people we need to help us through it? I find that we have no place for weakness. It's not a category that we actually define and care about. It's not something that we think should exist. It's something that we try to eradicate. We need to get weakness, people working out. Pain is weakness leaving the body. It's minimized. It's categorized as not what we want, not what we value, not what we point at. We're going to point at the strengths. And we kind of do this indirectly, but then when you get into anything serious, anything, weakness is a major part of the equation. In science, weakness is very important. When people are studying biology, people are studying people's different problems or illnesses, or they're studying math, or they're studying any type of construction, engineering, weakness is part of making the whole project work. If you don't understand what needs enforced, if you don't respect the weakness, if you're building a building, the building will fall over. You have to understand the vulnerabilities. It's not viewed as less, it's viewed as an important thing to consider. Like gravity. You just assume that certain things are going to fall, so you design around gravity. Weakness is like that. This is going to fall. This material is this dense. If we don't understand weakness and view it objectively, we can't create something that's meaningful and moves forward without understanding weakness. You know where else weakness is it's so funny. Like I talk about with football, weakness with little kids, it's almost like this thing we're not allowed to have. Oh, you're not bleeding. You're fine. You need to just suck it up. And trust me, I understand. There is a time when kids put it on and they're just playing. I get that. That's not when a kid is crocodile, crying and blood streaming. And there's times when kids need to grow up. There's times when they need to suck it up and they need to pull up their bootstraps and they need to do things that are hard for them. But when they're hurting, that's not an opportunity to tell them that their hurt isn't valid. In sports, it's really funny. When you're professional, weakness is almost like a huge part of the process. You get iced, you get therapy. All these professional athletes, all they do is they spend time with their rest. They make sure they rest enough. They make sure they eat enough. They make sure they get iced. They make sure they get therapy. They make sure that their mind and their heart and their body is all in sync. Why? Because of weakness. Because they get tired. Because being tired is part of the process of being human. And so if we don't respect weakness and kind of cater to weakness, then we'll never be able to be what we're supposed to be. And so you need the doctor. Why? For weakness. You need the therapist. Why? For weakness, so that you can become strong. I find that there's a level of vulnerability that is missing in the world. And it's almost like the greatest trick in the world. Because the thing about anxiety, the thing about weakness, is everybody has it and everyone is experiencing it and everyone is challenged, every single one of us. And when we recognize that, it does something in us of a communal healing and health and a holistic life experience. Now, I grew up in the church, and I grew up around all different kinds of church. Like, I spent some time in college at an all-black church singing in the choir. I spent some time working for a church that was more charismatic in its roots, came out of the Vineyard movement. I spent time working at a Southern Baptist church, which is much more conservative theologically, as you can imagine. And pretty much in any of those venues, any of those environments, there are certain phrases that just universally would make people think that someone was unspiritual or lacking strong faith. Like, imagine this. If someone said to you in any church environment, Satan, the enemy, the devil, he has got a hold of me, man. The devil's got a hold of me. Just what is your reaction to that? Like, if I stood up here as the pastor today and I said, you guys, Satan is working me over. Like, the devil has a hold of me. The devil is working it. I mean, he is. Some of you are going, the devil, is there a devil? What's the devil? Evil? If you just make the assumption, church, world, Bible, paradigm, there's a devil, there's this accuser that exists to kind of show us how broken we are and show us that we're never going to be good enough and that God can't help us and we can't help ourselves. But just imagine that a spiritual leader, someone that you think is strong, said, the devil has a hold on me. Wouldn't you be like, that person is lacking faith, that person is lacking strength, that person is not very spiritual? You'd be like, oh, you just need to pray that away. I hear people say, if you say, oh, the devil's, I could hear the conversation, the devil's got a hold on me. Well, you just need to trust God. Well, you just need to have more faith. Well, you just need to be, you just need to like go to church more, and you just need to pray more, and you just need to be like, you need to be fully engaged in trusting God more. If the devil's got a hold of you, the devil's not supposed to have a hold of you, because if you have more faith, if you trust more God, if your faith is stronger, you get strong enough so that the devil doesn't have a role in your life. I mean, that's like an obvious response to that. In all the different church paradigms and contexts that I was in, that was the response. I mean, if you said to someone in certain church paradigms, the devil is working on me, he's got a hold of my life, he's got a foothold on me, he's got a stronghold on me, he's doing something in my life. I know a lot of church people that say, let's call the elders together and let's pray because you're demon-possessed or Satan-oppressed or something. We're going to pray away the spirit. And we're going to pray in such a way that if that happens, because if you are a strong person, the devil can't play that role in your life. If you really love God and you really are faithful and you really understand spirituality, then the devil wouldn't be able to do that. Or not. I want to read something to you. This is from 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 6 through 10. I want to read something to you. Now, before you read this, I want you to give basic context, because a lot more is going on here than I'm going to describe. But certain people in the churches that Paul in the first century, in the first century is leading, and he's building these new churches to follow the risen Christ, the new King. There's certain leaders that are boasting about their ability to lead and how smart they are and how spiritual they are. They're boasting. They're trying to create more fellowship by flexing their spiritual muscles to get certain people in the church to follow them more than the other. And so what Paul does is he actually tells the church, boasting is really not where it's at. Because if I could say to you, like, I could boast and I have more kind of feathers in my cap spiritually than any of you. And he kind of lists them off. He says, I've done this from this tribe and grew up this way, and I know this much about the law, and I know, he's done all these different things. And he talks about that. He talks about how much he's done and all of his strengths and how powerful he is. And then he decides to tell them something else. It's fascinating. He decides to lean into a totally different sphere as he's telling these people what it really means to be human, what it really means to have a relationship with God, what it really means to be spiritually strong. He says this, read it with me, it's on the screen. He says, even if I should choose to boast, I would not be a fool because I would be speaking the truth. If anyone can boast, I can boast. But I refrain, so no one will think more of me than is warranted by what I do or say, or because of these surpassingly great revelations. Just before this, he goes on to talk about how he had this revelatory experience where he was caught up and had this, basically, plays the trump card of spirituality. They're all boasting about different things, and he says, I was caught up with God. I saw him face to face. I had interactions with him that you've never had in basic ways. He's like, I have way more to pull people along with my strengths than you do, but I'm not even going to do that. I'm not even going to do that. I've had these great revelations, but no. So therefore, in order to keep me from being conceited, look what he says. I was given a thorn in my flesh. Have you ever thought about it this way if you grew up in the church? You ever thought about it this way? Any other person that you know that would say this, you would say they are not spiritually strong. They are not spiritually strong because of what? Take it out of context, put your name in front of it, you say it, you say this. To keep me from being conceited, if you just said this, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. I'm walking around, I got a messenger of Satan. And you go, oh, well, you need to pray that away. You need to pray that away, man. You got to get rid of it. That's not spiritual. Paul goes on to say, oh, it may be the most spiritual thing that's ever happened to me. It may be the epitome of my faith. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away. You need to pray that God gets that demon out of your life, that bad situation. Now, it may not be a demon, but it just may be a weakness for you. You have a weakness. Oh, you shouldn't have no weaknesses. It doesn't hurt. You're not bleeding, are you? You're not bleeding, right? You cut a trach. You're good. You don't need help. Weakness, man. Get that pain as weakness leaving the body. 3 times I did what you would do and what I would do. 3 times I asked God to take away the messenger from Satan. This is hyperbolic, intense language, man. This is what you would describe as spiritually immature, most of us. Someone that's got a messenger of Satan in their life. Take it away. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. My power shows up in your void. I show up in the midst of your weakness. There's a space that's been created that you may not see if it wasn't there. You may not experience my power if you think you have all the power. My grace is sufficient for your void. You may think that weakness makes you less. Actually, it makes you complete because you cannot be complete without me. And all of our strengths send us on a journey of thinking we can do life without God. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses. Oh, this is crazy talk. Who does this? I don't know anybody. I've sat down with most of you. I have not sat down with any of you. Say, what do? And you just rattle off 5 things that you're really bad at. I've never sat with any of you and you told me your greatest weaknesses. Not until I really know you, or you hit rock bottom. And then finally you're trying to get help out of the weakness. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, I am strong. What's happening here is there's a play between pride and humility. What does pride do? What does pride do to us? What happens when we rest and lean and feed off of our strengths? It fills us up. It makes us fly. It makes us feel like we don't need God. It makes us feel like we're fine on our own. It makes us feel like we don't need people. So when we just live in our strengths and we only put equity on our strengths, what we do is we just move away from God and we move away from people. And therefore we lack the connection. And then we're alone. We're without God. We're without people. And what do when we fill ourselves with pride? We fall. The book of Proverbs says pride comes before the fall. You may know the ancient Greek mythology of Icarus. Anybody know the story of Icarus? His dad is a famous designer. He's a famous architect. He's a famous builder. He gets hired by a king to move to the island of Crete to build a labyrinth and then gets stuck in the labyrinth. He's not allowed to leave. And so with all of his ingenuity, he builds wings out of feather and wax, and he puts them on himself, and he puts them on his son Icarus, and he tells his son, don't fly too low, don't take this too lightly because we need to get over the labyrinth, but don't fly too high because if you fly too high, then the sun will melt the wax on your wings and you'll fall down and die. And Icarus couldn't help it. He started flying, and he just kept flying higher, and he just kept flying higher, and he didn't respect the sun, and he didn't respect his weakness, and he didn't respect his dad, and he didn't understand that there's a balance between strength and weakness in the world, and he flew so close to the sun that his wax melted, and he fell into the ocean, and he died. It's the phrase. That's where the phrase says, don't fly too close to the sun, because it'll probably melt the wax. Icarus leaned on his strength and it took him down. Icarus leaned on his strength. Listen to what I'm saying. Leaning on your strength alone will take you down. Pride is not simply thinking highly of yourself, but elevating yourself so high as to believe you're out flying God's sustainment and the need for his provision in your life. What does weakness do? It brings us into connection with God. It fills us. It's part of the way we're made. God's grace outshines your strength. You see, we think that our strength is what makes us shine. But the reality is that when we walk through life and we have our weaknesses, God's grace in those weaknesses, as it shows up and he says, I'm still connected with you. I still love you. I'm still going to take your hand. I still want to walk through it with you. I have never in my life thought that someone who boasts about all that they're good at shines very brightly. I never have. Craig Rochelle said that we impress people with our strengths, but we connect with people through our weaknesses. I've never connected to somebody so well because they told me a list of things that they do well. You know what connects you to people? Vulnerability. One of the things about strengths in the world is that there are lots of strengths and there is a match of strengths. Lots of people share the same strengths, but there's strengths of all different kinds. All different kinds. People have all different kinds of strengths. Different talents, different gifts, different abilities, their brains, their minds, their hands. And I believe this, that every single person has a beautiful, exclusive gift made by God, given to God, that when surrendered to God is in the 100th percentile. I really believe that. So if you ever see someone and they don't fit your category of strength, it's because you don't have enough categories. Everyone was made by God that way. But here's the thing about strengths. The myriad of strengths that exist, for that many that exist, there's actually very few and similar weaknesses. We kind of all have the same emotional problems. They play out through different contexts. But we actually feel a lot of the same problems. We actually experience the same pain. It happens different ways, and it may feel at different times very unique, but we actually feel pain similarly. Emotions are something that we all feel the same. You and I can both be sad about two different things, but the feeling is the same. And so what weakness has that's so powerful is it has the ability to bind us together. To go, you struggle with that too? I struggle with that. Could it be that most of humans are walking around with an intense amount of pain, an intense amount of weakness and struggle, and we're just afraid to talk about it because we think it makes us unwantable, unlovable, when really what it does is it's the thing that binds us together and makes love real. Paul leaned on his weakness, and it took him up. You see, having all victories in your life makes us forget about our desperate need for God. We all have tremendous weakness, and it's okay. One way I want you to think about this is weakness is an opportunity for you and God to waltz together. When we live in our strength, we don't create room for the Creator. When we're weak, we say, God, I need. He comes in close. He gives us grace. We walk with Him. He sustains us. He holds us. He gives us His breath. And the beauty of this is that it's true whether you know it or not. You need Him. You were always supposed to need Him. You need God. You want to waltz with God? You don't go to God like Jesus talks in the Gospels, and you go to the temple and you just say, I'm fine, I've done everything right, I pray, and I'm fine. You go to God and you say, I'm broken, I need you, I'm hurting. And God binds up the brokenhearted. God moves into the space of vulnerability. God hears weakness and He shows up in the midst of it, and His grace is sufficient. What that means is the presence of God is stronger than the absence of your strength. What if all of human life you think all I need is strength? All I need is to do the right thing, to say the right thing, to understand it all, to figure it all out. What if you had all that and it killed you? And you didn't have connectivity with people, and you didn't have a connectivity with God. What if the key to life is understanding the beauty of your weakness? Could it be that the greatest weakness is not valuing weakness? Weakness is an opportunity to waltz with God, for Him to take you by the hand, for Him to whisper in your ear, I'm here. I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. I love you. Strength turns into you with you. Just you hanging out with you, all by yourself, pushing people away, pushing God away. Weakness is that opportunity for you to do something with God. I present to you weakness. To close this down, I started off talking about one of the things that is an antidote for anxiety. And the first one is to say it's okay to not be okay. And you know what the other one is? The other strong one is this. Share your struggle. Share it. So here's my walk out the door, do life different, look like Jesus thing for this week. Go and in a safe place, actually tell someone what you're struggling with. Actually share it. Tell them what you're struggling with. Tell them your weakness. Tell them your challenge. Maybe it's your spouse. Maybe it's a good friend. I can tell you, I was getting ready for this message, and this week I sat down with a dear friend, one of my greatest friends, And because we've spent time together, he sat and told me that over the past 2 months, he's just been riddled with panic attacks. And in the process of him sharing that with me, I could feel the strength of sharing, supporting that. I could feel that the challenge of anxiety was actually kind of being shifted, and the platelets were moving because he decided to share his weakness. I could feel that the anxiety was going down because when you share your weakness with others, you're opening the door for them to share it with you. Because what happens is everyone's going through it, everyone's struggling, everyone's battling, everyone's feeling anxious, everyone's feeling scared. And when you say and you take the bold, which I believe faith move, I believe Paul move, I believe I was given a thorn in the flesh. I am struggling, but in my struggle, God showed up, man. That's where he lives with me. It's like, wow, I feel him more. So I want to boast about my struggles, because if I tell you about me is just me plus me. When I'm weak, it's me plus God, and that's better. That's better. That's real. Man, we live in a world of selfies. You know that on Zoom calls, you can enhance your image? You know that? On Zoom, go into the settings. Some of you are going, really? I didn't know that. We had a couple Zoom calls for the first couple of months when we were all shut down, and I enhanced my image, and I waited for a couple. You always look like ready to go in the morning. And I said, I know, because I'm ready to go. But really, I had the whole filter of Zoom enhancement on. We live in a world that celebrates perfection, that celebrates strength, that celebrates having it all together. And none of us have it all together. And all we do is push away God, push away each other, because we're not willing to let him show up in the void. Share your struggle. Sit down with someone. Everyone is struggling in some way or another right now. Suffering is universal, and it can be helpful to connect with people who can empathize. You are not alone. And the first person you can share your struggles with might be your partner. Admitting to them and to yourself that things are hard or that you feel overwhelmed can be scary. But once you share your experience, you are opening the door for them to do the same. You're basically becoming communal. In a time when everyone is more separated from each other than ever before, in a time where everyone's canceling anything that's less than perfect, in a safe place, go be vulnerable and let someone fill the void and experience what it means to trust God. Let's take a minute and let's pray. Father, thank you so much. God, this is so unbelievably counterintuitive. We're afraid to let our guard down. We're filled with pride. We want to look right. And the reality is we're all struggling. So, Father, I pray right now that at first that this church would go to you first. Share a struggle. You can hear it. It's more, can we say it? Will we say it? You're there for us. There for what? Not just to be a companion, but to be our help. To help us. God, help us not to be so filled with our strengths that we miss out on relationship with you and with each other. We love you. We thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. Next week, you guys, I'm starting a new series. I'm really anticipating what it's going to be. It's called Human. I've been working on it for a while, and I can't wait to share with you what I'm working on and what I'm learning about. And I can't wait to see you guys. And, of course, next week we get to have all the little humans, or some. here with us. So thanks, guys. We'll see you next week, okay? Have a great day.